Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
I can't believe it's Wednesday already. This week is moving by so quick. I mean, where did Monday and Tuesday go? Welcome to it. This is ZiFM Sport on a wacky Wednesday, the lockdown edition. From our homes to the comfort of your homes, you'll hear from Barry Manandi, Mike Madoda, Mark Paz, Chris, and Alois Bunjira. My name is Sean Tafrenyika. I'm the producer for ZiFM Sport. I hope you're staying at home and keeping safe. Now, yesterday we talked about the most influential cricketers of the modern era. Tonight we are going international. The Z team will zone in on the finest international cricketers of our generation. Who's the first name that came into your head? I mean, the game has been filled with legends from all over the world. Legends who have wowed crowds with their prowess on the field. Players such as Brian Lara, Shane Warne, Sachin Tendulkar, Jacques Kallis are arguably some of the finest cricketers of our generation, and we'll be talking about those four illustrious cricketers tonight. But do you agree? Now hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. The handle is at ZiFM Sport. Who are some of the finest cricketers of our generation according to you? I want to hear your opinion. It's still going to be a jam-packed show. We've got updates from the beautiful game around the world in 60, our power play, and a local sports news roundup. In fact, let's go to the local sports news roundup, where Paz will fill us in on what we need to know on the home front.
The home front. Local sports news and analysis.
To our local sports roundup, we'll start with cricket. The father of England-based Zimbabwean promising cricketer Tawanda Moyet, who last week made history by winning the prestigious Wisden Schools Cricketer of the Year award. Christopher Moyet says no decision has been made as yet on which country the lad will represent at senior level. There was massive speculation when the Harare-born teenager won the award that he had dumped Zimbabwe for England. Tawanda Moyet is in his sixth form at Eastbourne College, where he's been on a cricket scholarship since 2018. His father, who's based in Zimbabwe, has indicated that the lad still has a Zimbabwean passport and his priority is to finish high school, then head off to university. To chess, and as Team Zimbabwe gears for the up-and-coming Africa Chess Championships at the Chess Olympiad slated for Russia in August, the Zimbabwe Chess Federation has adopted the online playing system in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic. ZCF President Collins Tongwangana highlighted the importance of utilizing the internet to conduct their training programs ahead of the forthcoming major events on the chess calendar. And some sports administration. Athletes in Zimbabwe could benefit from a relief project announced to help provide support during the coronavirus pandemic. The United Programme for Athletes and Artists in Zimbabwe was announced by Youth, Sport, Arts and Recreation Minister Kirsty Coventry. The minister, who chairs the International Olympic Committee Athletes Commission, said the platform was aimed at providing support for both athletes and artists during the pandemic.
Hi, my name is Sean Williams, Zimbabwe cricket captain. You're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Z.
You know, identifying the finest players of our generation is no small task. But every once in a while, a cricketer comes who changes the sport forever. This type of cricketer performs beyond the wildest imagination, and they take the parameters to the next level. He sets new standards and dimensions for the future generations to meet or exceed. But then there are players who set benchmarks and records that may never be equaled. The Z team will walk us through four. We just deal with four today. Four of the finest cricketers of our generation, whose accomplishments and legacy will be cherished forever. The beautiful thing about cricket is that it's a statistical sport, so it's very easy to break down their numbers and show one's greatness. Barry will face the first ball as he will talk about Brian Lara, and after that, the strike will be rotated to pause. We will talk about Shane Warne.
When the President of the United States then toured Trinidad and Tobago in 2009, he had one request: to meet the man he described as the Michael Jordan of cricket, Brian Lara. Their meeting was organized, it happened, and the two shared various stories about their lives. That's the stature of the man we're about to talk about, Brian Charles Lara. He was born on the 2nd of May in 1969 in Cantaro, Trinidad. He's a West Indian cricketer and is one of the sport's most renowned contemporary players. The compact left-handed batsman is the record holder for most runs scored in an innings, both in the international test arena as well as the record in first-class cricket. He's one of a family of 11. He's a natural athlete and was a member of the national under-14 soccer team. Lara was expected from an early age to be the next great West Indian cricketer. He was first selected for West Indies national team in 1990 at the age of 21, and in January 1993, Lara scored 277 versus Australia in Sydney. This, his maiden test century in his 5th test, was the turning point of the series as West Indies won the final 2 tests to win the series 2-1. Lara went on to name his daughter Sydney after scoring 277 at the SCG, the Sydney Cricket Ground. I remember a commentator remarking and saying, "Thank goodness he didn't score that in Lahore." He was to go on and make his mark in 1994 when he broke the 2 most coveted batting records in cricket, scoring 375 runs against England, besting Sir Garfield Sober's 36-year-old record, and then scoring 501 runs not out for Warwickshire, his English county team. So he now held the records for Test cricket as well as the run-making record for first-class cricket. 10 years later, in 2003, this record was broken by Australia's Matthew Hayden, who scored 380 runs against, yep, you guessed it, Zimbabwe in Perth. It was the first test of the Zimbabwe tour, and in that game, Australia scored a mammoth 735 for 6 declared. Needless to say, we lost the test by an innings and 175 runs. In 2004, Lara, once he was done with his applause for Hayden, I would think he said to himself, "Anything you can do, I can do better. Here guys, hold my beer." He then became the first player to retake the test batting record when his 400 runs not out against England obliterated the 380 runs which was posted by Hayden a year earlier. Lara captained the West Indies from 1998 to 1999 when the West Indies suffered their first whitewash at the hands of South Africa. Following this, they played Australia in a 4-test series which was drawn 2-2, with Lara scoring 546 runs, including 3 centuries and 1 double ton. In the 2nd test at Kingston, he scored 213, while in the 3rd test, he scored, get this, 153 not out in the 2nd innings as West Indies chased down 311 with 1 wicket remaining. Did you get that? He scored 153 not out. They were chasing 311. They only had 1 wicket remaining, and they managed to chase it down. He won the man of the match for both matches and was also named man of the series. No doubt. I don't think they could give it to anyone else. In fact, the Wisden 100, which is a popular magazine and also site for cricket stats, rates Lara's 153 not out against Australia in Bridgetown in 1998-99 as the 2nd best innings ever after Sir Donald Bradman's 270 against England in Melbourne in 1936-37. Lara would go on to captain the Windies for 2 other periods, and it was in the 3rd coming, when he replaced Shivnarine Chanderpool in 2006, that he would lead the team to the final of the DFL Cup and the ICC Champions Trophy, finishing as runners-up in both finals. Lara played his final international game on the 21st of April 2007 in a dead rubber World Cup game against England. He was run out for 18 after a mix-up with Marlon Samuels. England won the game by 1 wicket. Before the end of that World Cup, Australian fast bowling legend Glenn McGrath stated that Lara is the greatest batsman that he has ever bowled to. Lara declared that he still wanted to sign a contract to play T20 cricket. Late in the year, he joined Southern Rocks, a Zimbabwean side, to compete in the 2010-2011 Stanbic Bank 20 series. You remember that tournament that used to take place at Harare Sports Club, the Stanbic Bank 20 series? Well, on his debut for the Southern Rocks, and his first ever T20 match, because T20 cricket was only launched after his retirement in September 2007. He scored a half century, top scoring for the Rocks with 65. He added 34 runs in the next 2 innings, but then left the competition citing, quote, commitments elsewhere. After expressing his interest to play in the 2011 fourth edition of the Indian Premier League, the IPL, and despite not having played active cricket for 5 years, Brian Lara still managed to attract the highest reserve price of $400,000. It looks like chump change nowadays, because now we go into the millions for IPL players. That was ahead of the IPL players auction in early January 2011. Unfortunately, no franchise bought him at that price of $400,000. Brian Lara has been awarded numerous accolades, too numerous to mention, but notably in 2009, Lara was made an honorary member of the Order of Australia, AM, for services to West Indian and Australian cricket. The Brian Lara Stadium, opened in 2017, was named in his honor, and that's in Trinidad and Tobago. The consummate shot maker, Brian Lara, had the innate ability to put so much variation in his batting that he was an absolute nightmare for opposition bowlers, easily able to speed up the run rate and slow it down in equal measure. There's no doubt that he ranks with the likes of Sir Garfield Sobers, Sir Don Bradman, Clive Lloyd, Sir Viv Richards, Ricky Ponting as among cricket's greatest batsmen.
Hi, my name is Sean Williams, Zimbabwe cricket captain. You're listening to ZiFM Sport.
One of the finest international cricketers of our generation has got to be one Shane Keith Warne. For all his on-pitch and off-pitch controversy, Shane Warne's place for me in cricketing posterity has been assured by the fact that he's overturned the domination of cricket by fast bowling that had prevailed for 2 decades before his debut. And despite the pressure of high-quality spin bowlers such as the Indian spin quartet of the 1970s, Shane Warne reignited spin bowling like no other. Warne combined the ability to turn the ball, even on unhelpful pitches, with unerring accuracy and a variation of deliveries, notable amongst those being the Warne flipper. In the latter stages of his career, variation was less evident despite regular press conferences announcing a new delivery for each series he participated in. That was one of Shane Warne's great signature comments that when asked by the interviewer, they said, so Shane, what have you got? Well, you know what, it's a new series, there's a new delivery. So he just changed cricket for me in this new generation. Warne had played just 7 first-class matches before making his debut at Test level for Australia. He had an undistinguished Test debut when called into the Aussie team in January of 1992 for a Test against India at the SCG. He took 1 for 150, and that wicket was Ravi Shastri, caught by Dean Jones for 206 or 45 overs. He then took 0 for 78 in the 4th Test in Adelaide, recording overall figures of 1 for 228 for the series, and was subsequently dropped. But in August of 1992, he took the last 3 Sri Lankan wickets without conceding a run in the second innings, precipitating a second innings collapse and contributing to a remarkable 16-run Australian win. Sri Lankan captain Arjuna Ranatunga commented in an interview that a bowler with test average of more than 300 came and snatched the victory from our hands. And there was Shane Warne. Shane Warne's international career had taken off. His performances in the last 2 tests in Sri Lanka were not to the satisfaction of the selectors, and guess what? He was dropped for the first test against the Windies in the season of 92-93. But it was 1993 that Warne was back in favour with the Australian selectors, and he headed over to England for the Ashes tour, and he was the leading wicket taker for the 6 Test series with 34 wickets, and his first ball of the series has, we all know, been written into the history books as the ball of the century, bowling the experienced England batsman Mike Gatting with a ball that turned from well outside leg stump to clip the off bail. He took 71 Test wickets in 93, then a record for a spin bowler in a calendar year, and Shane Warne's career was really up and going. He then had numerous success with the tours of South Africa. And basically the rest is history with Shane Warne. He just continued to be a phenomenal player throughout his career. He was a key member of Australia's squad in the 96 World Cup held in India, Pakistan and Sri Lanka. Australia had actually qualified for the final with Warne having taken 12 wickets in the World Cup, including a man of the match, 4 for 36 in the semi-final against the Windies. But ahead of the final against Sri Lanka, Aussie captain Mark Taylor publicly declared that Warne was not vital to his team, emphasizing that Warne alone could not win the World Cup. Warne conceded 58 runs with no wickets in the final. And guess what? Australia lost the match to the first-time champions Sri Lanka that year. But as always, Shane Warne bounced back, and he will go down as one of the greatest bowlers, spin bowlers, world cricket has ever seen. He played 145 Test matches, 194 one-day internationals. If you just look at his wickets, 708 Test wickets, 293 ODI wickets, 10 wickets in a match. He took that 10 times. His best bowling was 8 for 71. He was a phenomenal bowler, and I think when you look at statistics with a bowler like Shane Warne, you've got to look at bowling average, and he had a Test bowling average of 25.41, which is absolutely phenomenal. Shane Warne, for me, one of the greatest cricketers of our generation.
Those two cricketers were absolutely brilliant. We heard about Brian Lara from Barry and Shane Warne from Mark-Pose. I mean, Brian Charles Lara, often described as a wizard waving his bat on the pitch like a wand. He's relentless force of nature, and he's one of the greatest batsmen of the modern era. I mean, everything that Barry talked about in there, about his style and how he used to mesmerize the common spectators, hold true. I mean, breaking records, that was his bread and butter. Lara was absolutely massive. And how about Shane Warne? A national hero, no doubt, and admired by cricket lovers anyway for his unsurpassed skill and honest and perspective and fearless views. We now see him on our TVs doing a little bit of punditry, and Shane, he has gone on to be named one of the 5 cricketers of the 20th century by Wisdom, the Bible of world cricket. And what illustrious companies in the likes of, say, Donald Bradman, say, Garfield Sobers, say, Jack Hobbs, say, Vivian Richards, and that boy from BlackRock. He may not have a sir in front of his name, but he certainly belongs amongst them. You know what? In fact, we're going to do it now on ZiFM Sport. We now dub the Shane Keith Warne, Sir Shane Keith Warne from BlackRock in Australia. All right, keep your messages coming through. The handle is at ZiFM Sport on Facebook and Twitter. Let us know who the finest cricketers of our generation are. Now remember, we've got our power play and updates from the beautiful game. But coming up next, it's Around the World in 60 with Chris, as she gives us the latest in international sports news.
Around the World in 60 seconds. International sports news.
We take off in South Africa, where Super Rugby organisers are hopeful the competition will go ahead in some form this season, possibly being played simultaneously with the Rugby Championship. SANZAAR Chief Executive Andy Marino said they are willing to allow the currently suspended season to continue until December if necessary, though it will consider cancelling if a resumption is not possible by October. International travel restrictions make it likely that if Super Rugby resumes, it will be within regional conferences, with New Zealand, Australian and South African teams playing among themselves. We head over to India, where the 2020 IPL is said to be postponed indefinitely amid the COVID-19 pandemic after India extended its lockdown until the 3rd of May. The A-Team League, which was originally scheduled to begin on the 29th of March, was initially deferred until Wednesday before India announced a 3-week lockdown last month. IPL Governing Council Chairman Brijesh Patel did not take calls or reply to Aruta's message to comment on the possible dates of the tournament. We touched down in Germany where Nico Rosberg says he's a huge fan of Max Verstappen, but has also labeled the Dutchman as the most annoying rival from his Formula One career. The former world champion had plenty of run-ins with Verstappen, who has built up a reputation as one of the sport's fastest and most combative racers. Answering questions from fans, Rosberg promptly selected Verstappen as the most annoying driver he has ever raced against, citing battles during the climax to his title-winning 2016 season.
Hi, my name is Sean Williams, Zimbabwe cricket captain. You're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Z. Tonight we're talking about the finest cricketers of our generation, and we heard Barry Manandi talk about Brian Rara before Mark Paz filled us in on the illustrious Sir Shane Warne. Yes, we gave him a title here on ZiFM Sport. But let's now get the second wicket partnership of Chris and Mike. Chris is going to talk about my personal favorite and a personal hero of mine, Sachin Tendulkar from India, and Mike is going to talk about the illustrious Proteas all-rounder Jacques Kallis.
Sachin Tendulkar is often referred to as the god of cricket, the master blaster, the little master, and the best batsman of all time. He scored his first triple hundred while still in primary school, and this is when he began to get global attention. He already started getting small crowds of people following him from match to match as a child, and he made his international debut at the age of 16. His first Test century was 190 not out, and this was against England at Old Trafford. His status began to grow as India's talisman. Now the pressure obviously mounted of who he had become to the Indian people, and he carried the hopes of 1 billion people, giving the Indian people something that brought them together across religious, political, and class lines. He gave a lot of pride to the Indian people from what he accomplished on the field. Now, before Sachin, there were very few sponsors in Indian cricket, but during his time, more sponsors came on board, and you could see this during the time. Their shirts began to have sponsors on them. There were more sponsors on the field. And this was also a result of India's economic rise and Sachin's rise as well. And this happened at the same time. As India opened up, media grew, and the gospel of Sachin, as they called it, grew even further. Financially as well, cricketers benefited more than they had previously. He was popular worldwide, and this is one of the markings of his performances and how great he was that he was one of cricket's first superstars, and he generated a lot of buzz around the sport. What was so special about Sachin Tendulkar himself was that he held himself to incredibly high standards for such a long period of time, which is a testament to his mental strength. Now, even though he had this sterling international career, the World Cup seemed to elude him. At the 1996 World Cup, he was the lead run scorer with over 500 runs to his name, sparing not even the great Shane Warne. In 2003, he was top scorer of the tournament with a run haul of 673, but still no winner's medal. 2011, the World Cup, final chance for him to win a World Cup medal, and as MS Dhoni hit the winning runs against Sri Lanka at the stadium lit up. One of his greatest moments, and he talks about it repeatedly in interviews still, is that this was one of the crowning pieces of his career. Now, his flawless technique is something that cricketers who have played with him and against him always talk about. He had a brilliant cricket brain as well, and he kept his game plan very simple. Phenomenal hand-eye coordination, calm at the crease, incredible self-confidence, and he could play in every form of the game. In 2010, he entered the record books for becoming the first player to score a double century in an ODI against South Africa. In 2012, in an ODI against Bangladesh, he recorded his 100th and final international 100. He retired on the 16th of November 2013 in his home city of Mumbai. He retired after 24 years in cricket and played 200 Test cricket matches. He's mentioned among names at the top of cricket history like Don Bradman. 663 tests and ODIs, over 34,000 runs, 100 centuries. Records like this will never be set again.
Z.
Hi, my name is Sean Williams, Zimbabwe cricket captain. You're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Z.
You know, world cricket has seen some fantastic cricketers over the years and in recent times, but for me, I've got to say Jacques Kallis is right up there. I really love this guy. Coming out of the Western Cape, he attended and played cricket for Wynberg Boys High, and that's where the bug bit. In fact, in 2009, actually, Wynberg honored Jacques Kallis by naming their main cricket over after him. He was only 19 when he made his Test debut against England, and who would have known that he'd go on to have one of the best careers the game has ever seen. Jacques Kallis is the only cricketer in the history of the game to score more than 10,000 runs and take over 250 wickets in both one-day internationals and test match cricket. He also took 131 one-day international catches. He scored 13,289 runs in his test match career and took 292 wickets and 200 catches. Kallis played 166 tests and had a batting average of over 55 runs per innings. And if I look at those figures alone, Jacques Kallis remains South Africa's all-time leading run scorer in international cricket and arguably the best all-rounder the game has ever seen, and he should certainly be recognized without a shudder of a doubt as the greatest South African cricketer. Now, cricket is and has always been a sport where statistical achievements by individuals are hotly debated, but by most criteria, when you take a look at Jacques Kallis's career, it stands out. Any ranking of cricketers is something that drifts into the realm of the subjective because of contributions that aren't always accurately reflected in statistics. A thing for me that makes Jacques Kallis one of the all-time greats isn't his impressive career numbers so much as his relentless consistency. Now, throughout the history of cricket, there have been players who have been more explosive in their run scoring and quite a few who have posted bigger scores, but few can claim to have been as consistent in what they have delivered as the South African Jacques Kallis. With ball in hand, the same was actually true. Jacques Kallis wasn't the quickest bowler, nor did he take a bag of wickets, but his captains always knew what they were getting when he had the cherry in hand. In South Africa, the debate is around him, old school favorite Graham Pollock, and the modern batting sensation AB de Villiers. If you take a look or pass a cursory glance at the Proteas run scoring charts, it suggests that if AB de Villiers had played anywhere near the amount of cricket Kallis did, he would have comfortably surpassed him as the greatest run scorer. But Kallis remains the man at the top, and he did this by scoring a mountain of runs over a 19-year international career. The hallmark of his play, the hallmark of his career was consistency. Yes, AB de Villiers has been prolific with the bat, but Jacques Kallis was as good as a top bowler with the cherry in hand, and he was certainly one of the greatest fieldsmen or slipsmen in world cricket. If you take a look at his contribution as an all-rounder, his influence is such that the Proteas have struggled to balance their Test 11 since his retirement. He was for many years their banker, a reliable source of runs and crucial contributor over the years. Now, towards the back end of his career, the Proteas weren't able to utilize Kallis as much as a test bowler, as years of strain had taken a toll on his body. But tellingly, his final Test innings was a century against India in Durban. Only the great do that. Those figures again: 25,534 international runs for Jacques Kallis, 577 international wickets, 338 international catches. That is an incredible career, and for my money, one of the greatest cricketers we have ever seen.
Sachin Tendulkar and Jacques Kallis big-time players, big-time performers. I mean, Chris talked about Sachin Tendulkar. And the thing now is that, do you know that in 2012, he became a member of the upper chamber of the Indian Parliament. He's the first active athlete to join that body, and he was nominated for that post, and he ended his term in 2018. So not just a little master on the cricket pitch, but a little master in politics as well. And in 2014, he also became the first sports person to receive India's highest civilian honor. I mean, Sachin Tendulkar is a bit of a cult hero in India, so no doubt he's gone on to be a big symbol for India. I mean, Tendulkar was inducted into the International Cricket Council Hall of Fame in 2019, and he deserves to be there. Former players like Kevin Peterson and Daryl Killinan have described Jacques Kallis as one of the greatest cricketers to ever play the game. Kallis is one of only 4 players in Test history to make a century in 5 consecutive matches, and Mike broke down some of his major numbers. He was absolutely dominant. And the thing is that Jacques Kallis has also gone on to do things outside the pitch as well. He's formed the Jacques Kallis Scholarship Foundation, which was established to benefit players who he wants them to combine their academic skills with their life skills, as well as programs that exist within the school structures. Kallis partakes in annual fundraising events for his foundation, which he invites fellow South African celebrities and cricketers like Mark Boucher. We're going to take a little bit of a breather now with our power play on a Wednesday, Wacky Wednesday.
Hi, this is Mike Madoda, and you're listening to the ZiFM Sport Podcast.
You're tuning into ZiFM Stereo, my station, your station. This is the lockdown edition of ZiFM Sport. Let's keep the interaction going. The handle is at ZiFM Sport on Facebook and Twitter. You can reach us directly by just searching for our names. Let's catch up with what's happening in the world of football now as we go across the major European leagues and also find out what's happening in the South African ABSA Premiership.
The big leagues, the big teams, the big players. The beautiful game on ZiFM Sport. The Nerazzurri, the Black and Blues, Inter Milan.
It's Romelu Lukaku, and it was never in doubt. He's a beast at the best of times, but this season he has become a monster.
The Giallorossi, the Yellow and Reds, AS Roma.
Belotti has a go! Tremendous hits! That's what he's capable of!
La Viola, the Purple Ones, Fiorentina.
Brock Ribery seals a glorious win for Fiorentina with a sumptuous goal at San Siro.
The Bianconeri, the Black and Whites, Juventus.
Ronaldo seals yet another 3 points for Juventus.
Tough yet colourful. The best of Italian football on Z.
Now, Serie A suspension has been extended to the 3rd of May in line with the Italian government's latest lockdown measures to combat the ongoing coronavirus outbreak. All sporting activities in Italy had been put on hold initially until the 13th of April, with the country having been on a national lockdown since the 10th of March. Serie A was the first major league in Europe to suspend games due to fears over the coronavirus threat, when 4 matches due to be played on the weekend of the 22nd and 23rd of February were called off. And we understand that there's already a financial protocol in place for Serie A clubs, because the understanding is that players and managers will take a salary cut of 1/3 should the season not be played out, and 1/6 if it finished conclusively, in order to help with the financial burden of football not being played. So that financial plan assists and gives a clear understanding to clubs what they ought to do, ought not to do, if the league goes one way or the other. So what they need now is to understand the protocol in terms of bringing people back to training, or if the league is going to be kicked off at all. And now a leading Italian health official says that he does not see how Serie A, which has been on suspended due to the COVID-19 pandemic, could resume in the next few weeks. Italy Football Federation head Gabriele Gravina said on Saturday he hoped teams could begin training in May, provided players tested negative for the new coronavirus, with the first games possibly coming at the end of that month. So the thinking around football circles in Italy is that either Coming back to training early May and then kicking off end of May might be feasible, apart from this date that they've given us, the 3rd of May. However, Giovanni Rezza, who's the Director of Infectious Diseases at the Italian National Institute of Health, the ISS, disagreed completely with this assertion from football. They reckon that it's going to take a little bit longer than that. Now, Serie A has been on hold since March the 10th, as we said earlier, with players at several clubs testing positive for COVID-19, which has killed 113,000 people globally. I mean, just looking at the figures, it's absolutely staggering. I mean, there have been 11 players so far confirmed positive for coronavirus, including 7 at Sampdoria alone. So that's how quickly this coronavirus can spread amongst a football team. So bringing people or bringing players back to training prematurely might actually have the negative effect compared to the one that we want, which is self-isolation, so that we're able to slow down the spread of the disease. 3 players at Fiorentina were tested positive, and of course you'll remember before even the lockdown protocol came into force, Daniele Rugani of Juventus had already tested positive for the COVID-19 coronavirus. And caution is the word. Caution is the word of the day, of the month, and of this season as pertains to COVID-19. The FIGC said last week that it had begun drawing up medical guidelines for a restart of the championship. Its medical council is due to meet again today to discuss that protocol and see what needs to be done to ensure that teams are able, number one, to return to training, and then number 2, to return to the championship proper. We understand that Atalanta was due to start training sometime this week. That remains to see whether they will be able to come back to training. Roma was also scheduled to start training this week, but they have postponed their return to training to ensure that they get their players to make it as safe as possible, because ultimately it is the safety and health of the players that is paramount. Juventus, Inter, Sampdoria, Udinese, Fiorentina and Hellas Verona have players and staff who are in quarantine, either because they have tested positive for COVID-19 or they are trying to ensure that the figures stay low. We do understand, though, that Italy has begun to level out in terms of the infections and even the death rate, albeit that it is still very, very high in Italy. So they will need to see that goes down significantly before they call back teams for training and ensure that the championship does get back on track. Lazio and Cagliari were meant to be back on March the 21st, while Brescia have postponed their return to training to March the 29th. So it looks like players and teams are playing ball, and the safety of human beings is paramount. Yes, we all want football. We all miss football. But ultimately, there is greater things that we need to be worried about at this stage. We need to make sure that the safety of individuals, of players and officials is paramount.
The league that makes football oh so beautiful, where artistry and strokes of genius are the order of any day, where the game is played with a smile and the little master creates his magic.
It's Lionel Messi!
All the news from the Spanish La Liga on ZiFM Sport.
In Spain, Real Madrid striker Luka Jovic is in a bit of a crisis, but Alexander Mitrovic is confident his Serbia teammate will improve with more game time. Jovic arrived at Santiago Bernabeu last June for a reported 60 million euros, having scored 17 Bundesliga goals and 10 in the Europa League for Eintracht Frankfurt during the 2018-29 season. However, the 22-year-old has scored just twice in 24 appearances, 8 of which have come from the start in all competitions, with Madrid completing the 90 minutes just once. Yeah, I can see that Jovic is in a situation here. You know, when you look at the situation, he was firing at Eintracht Frankfurt, and everybody thought that he was the real deal. But then when he arrived at Real Madrid, things haven't really cracked. But I do really agree with Mitrovic, who has actually backed up his team as that it is going to happen. Because look at his age, he is only 22. He has proved that he is capable. The fact that he was scoring in the Europa, it means that he can actually be a very lethal striker because he was playing against the top European teams in the Europa League. So I still believe that at 22 he has got time on his side. But Mitrovic also went on to say that goals are like ketchup. You shake them, they don't come out, but when they come out plenty of them. I've been in a situation like this. Sometimes you actually hit a dry spell. When you try to do a lot of things, it just won't happen. I think he just needs to stay simple, to actually relax and let things just happen. The most important thing, like Mitrovic has also said, is that you are on the field. He is on the field. He's getting a chance to play. Once this starts happening, I think that he will do it. For me, I think he is the real deal. When you look at his stature, when you look at his these goals at Eintracht Frankfurt, he has got everything that a striker needs. But obviously, criticism always comes when a striker doesn't score goals, and he has actually to live with it. And it's also not an easy thing to play for a big club like Real Madrid. He is not coming from a big team in Germany. He's coming from Eintracht Frankfurt, which is a modest club in Germany. So to just make that jump from Eintracht Frankfurt to Real Madrid is a big jump. He needed to adjust as well. So I still believe that he is a good striker. He can actually play. But the only problem now that is coming out is the reports that Real Madrid might want to sell him, might want to move him on. There is rumor that they are going to make him one of the way in parts of the deal, where they want Erling Haaland from Borussia Dortmund. They want to make him part of the deal as well, to bring Haaland to Real Madrid. It's quite unfortunate. I thought that Real Madrid at 22 they could actually keep him. He could actually improve. They could actually bring in Erling Haaland to Real Madrid and actually work with Jovic. They can actually work together. Maybe one day they can actually find a combination. Look, they have got an old team. Let's be honest, Real Madrid's team is getting old, and they need to replace these players with younger players as well. So I think if Erling Haaland and Jovic are actually working together, I actually think it can actually be working. Yes, he's in a bit of crisis right now, but like any other striker, when you are a striker, the most important thing is that you are on the pitch. He is on the pitch. He is getting time. I think you come right. But you never know with teams like Real Madrid. They want instant success and all that, so they might just want to move him. Then they can actually get a big name striker. They brought in Eden Hazard, and it hasn't really worked out well for Real Madrid, and they might just be looking for a big name striker to actually do it for them. And Erling Haaland, although he is a bit young, he is already showing signs that he is going to be a world-class player, so they might just want to have a go at him. But I promise you, from Borussia Dortmund, he is going to be very expensive. I actually think that's why Real Madrid are actually thinking of trading with Jovic, so that he can actually weigh in with the transfer money as well. But like I said, for me, I would rather keep Jovic in the team. He's still young, he's still 22, and he can still do it. Bring in the big name strikers, yes, but keeping him in the team, is going to improve. One of these days, he might just be the big name striker in world football. He did it when he was only 21 at Eintracht Frankfurt, at a modest club. So the ability, we don't doubt him. So I don't know. I'm not Real Madrid, but if I were a part of Real Madrid, I would keep Jovic in the team and bring in any other world striker to actually come in, and he can understudy the top striker at Real Madrid. He has got potential. He is young. He has done it before in Europe. He has done it at Eintracht Frankfurt. I still think that he can do it at Real Madrid. You never know. Let's wait and see what happens during the transfer window.
All the rivalry.
Here is Harry Kane for Tottenham. Oh, what a goal! A classic derby goal from Harry Kane. Catch him if you can.
All the stars.
Oh, back here's Liverpool 2 in front. Talk about impudence. Talk about improvisation. Talk about Sadio Mane.
And all the game-changing moments.
And Raheem Sterling rattles it home. And once more, City are in front in a trice.
All the updates from the Premier League on ZiFM Sport.
To the Premier League, and Bruno Fernandes has defended Manchester United teammate Paul Pogba, insists his critics have forgotten his quality. The Portugal midfielder believes the World Cup winner has been singled out for criticism due to the higher expectations on him. Pogba has not featured since Boxing Day, playing just 8 times in an injury-hit season, and Fernandes feels the former Juventus player has suffered unfairly. Well, my personal opinion, I certainly don't agree with that. I think Paul Pogba is his own worst enemy, and I believe Manchester United need to sell him. They've played better without him, and they could certainly use that money and bring in 2 or 3 quality players. He is a problem child on the field, off the field. He's just one of those guys that United need to sell. Fernandes says he's coming from a bad moment because of the situation when he also played the club and the team was not good. Well, yeah, no, they weren't. They suddenly started playing well without him. Yes, he's a good player, but I just don't believe he fits Manchester United's football. And for me, Paul Pogba needs to be sold, and sooner rather than later.
Z. The beating drum. Roaring fans. Take a ride on the wild side with the Africa Report on ZiFM Sport.
Former Bafana Bafana midfielder Delron Buckley believes it would be unfair to award Kaizer Chiefs the ABSA Premiership title if the 2019-2020 season does not resume. So football across South Africa has been stopped due to the coronavirus pandemic that has also brought a halt to majority of sport globally. Amakhosi are currently at the top of the league standings with 48 points from 22 matches, while Mamelodi Sundowns are in second place with a game in hand. Now, Buckley feels that handing the title over with so many games left to play would be unfair, as the Brazilians could dethrone Amakhosi as it's still mathematically possible. Mamelodi Sundowns were playing CAF Champions League as well as the local league, so obviously they still have some matches to fulfill, and it wouldn't be fair to give the title over to Chiefs. Now, the league in South Africa looks to be a bit different in terms of how it's going to be handled because of how close the other teams are to Chiefs. So SAFA released a statement saying that they would resume the league and other domestic competitions on 2 conditions. First condition is that the government has to declare that it's safe for them to do so. And the second reason would be domestic flights need to be reinstituted. Now, this is where it gets a little bit tricky because we all know that travel increases the risk of exposure to coronavirus, and teams move in large numbers, and the possibility of them spreading the disease further and also contracting it in large groups is also quite high. So at the moment, South Africa is still on an extended lockdown with coronavirus cases still on the increase. So the likelihood that the league will resume and continue in its normal format are very, very slim. What is more likely is that the result of the league, the rest of the leagues in the world, they would play in a much more different format, with teams playing at centralized venues with multiple games in a set period. Say instead of playing 1 game a week, they would likely play 3 or 4 games in order to make sure that the league is completed. There's various ways that they'd be able to complete the league, but for South Africa it has to be handled quite well. Delron Buckley also talks about the fact that you take a look at England, where it's not possible to catch up to Liverpool anymore, but South Africa is in a different scenario where it is possible to catch up to Chiefs, and it's essentially a competition still that needs to be completed, or at least that needs to go further enough to see that justice is done, and whether it's Chiefs or another team that walks away with the title, that it is done and completed properly.
Z. Unfortunately, we've run out of time and we gotta go, but we'll be back tomorrow for our short show, the show that's short, sharp and sweet, Throwback Thursday, and it's gonna be part 2 of our interview with Alois Bunjira. You don't want to miss the fascinating stories that happened in his career. Until then, take care of yourself and stay safe.